Have you ever wondered why some women seem to treat you differently than you expect? Why a glance lasts a second longer? Why a smile has a hidden weight? Why her silence feels like it's daring you to notice? You might think you're average, invisible, just another guy in the crowd. But here's the truth. Most men never realize you're giving off signals of attraction far louder than you think, and women notice them. They notice them before you do, and they use them sometimes innocently, sometimes deliberately to test you, to draw you in, or to measure their own power. Imagine this. You're at a cafe. You're not dressed in anything expensive, just a simple shirt and jeans. Across the room, a woman glances up at you and then quickly looks away. You brush it off, but then it happens again. A small flick of her eyes, then a sudden retreat. You think it's nothing, maybe she's bored, maybe she's distracted, but in that very moment, she's already tagged you as someone who draws her attention. And here's the kicker: if you don't realize what's happening, you'll either overplay it or completely miss it. Both mistakes kill attraction. The first mistake, over-investing, you catch her glance, and suddenly you're chasing it, smiling too often, leaning in too much, giving your energy like it's free. That's the trap. Women test men without ever opening their mouths. A glance is not an invitation, it's a probe. She's not asking, "Do you like me?" She's silently asking, "Do you crumble when I look at you?" The man who crumbles gives her power. The man who remains unshaken commands respect. The second mistake, dismissing your own presence. You think, "She wouldn't notice me. I'm nothing special." And that thought alone makes you act smaller, quieter, invisible. Women sense that, too. You're not invisible because they can't see you. You're invisible because you refuse to step into the effect you already have. The truth is, women are constantly scanning, measuring, and calculating. They see posture, they feel presence, they notice silence. They can tell when a man walks in whether he's centered or lost. Here's the part most men never hear. Your attractiveness is not just about looks. It's about how your energy pulls or collapses under pressure. A woman might not be thinking, "He's hot." Instead, she's thinking, "Why does his calmness make me feel something? Why do I want to break it just to see if I can?" Attraction is often less about admiration and more about curiosity. She wants to test the walls of your strength. If they're weak, she loses interest. If they're solid, she leans in further. Let me give you a concrete example. A guy I knew once told me about this girl in his college class. She'd always tease him, flick his pen, steal his notes, laugh at things he said. He thought she was just being annoying, so he brushed it off, even got irritated. But here's what was really happening. She was signaling interest in the only language she knew how, through attention disguised as disruption. He missed it, and eventually, she pulled away completely. Later, he found out she had told her friends. "I liked him, but he never did anything." That's what happens when you don't recognize your own magnetism. You kill it by doubting it. Now let's flip it. Another man I worked with noticed a woman withdrawing her attention after being warm for weeks. Instead of chasing her, instead of asking what's wrong, he stayed calm, indifferent, centered. When she finally circled back with a casual text, he didn't jump. He replied hours later, casually, with no pressure. Guess what happened? She doubled her effort. She leaned back in. Why? Because his silence revealed strength. He didn't need her validation. That alone amplified his attractiveness. You need to understand this. Women are not attracted to effort. They're attracted to presence. They're not drawn to the man who constantly proves himself. They're drawn to the man who already knows he doesn't have to. Every glance, every withdrawal, every silence is not random. It's a test. The question is, will you pass it? So the next time you notice a woman looking at you, don't rush to respond. Let the silence hang. Let her wonder what you're thinking. That space is power. When she pulls away, don't chase. When she teases, don't overreact. When she tests, don't collapse. Attraction is not built in grand gestures. It's in the moments where you hold your ground, calmly, without explanation. That's the sign you're a lot more attractive than you realize. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a woman tease or test you, and only later realized it was attraction? Have you ever noticed women looking at you but dismissed it as coincidence? Which mistake do you think you make more, over-investing or underestimating yourself? Drop your story in the comments. Most men underestimate how much women watch them, not just their words, not just their looks, but the subtle things: how you order food, how you react when the waiter makes a mistake, how you handle silence. Women notice these micro moments and draw conclusions instantly. They don't need you to talk for hours to decide if they're drawn to you. They can see it in a glance, in a pause, in the way you carry yourself when nobody else is watching. Think about it. How many times have you been in a group setting, maybe at work or out with friends, and you notice a woman laughing a little louder at your jokes than at anyone else's? She touches her hair when you speak. She positions herself so she's facing you, even if the conversation isn't directly about you. These are not accidents. They're signals. But here's the trap: if you notice them and suddenly try too hard, the energy flips. What was once curiosity turns into disappointment, because you expose that you don't understand your own effect. Attraction often reveals itself in contradiction. She might ignore you in one moment, then suddenly be overly warm in another. She might tease you in front of her friends, but then send you a private message late at night. Many men interpret this as confusion, as if she doesn't know what she wants. But here's the truth: she knows exactly what she's doing. It's not confusion, it's calibration. She's testing how much she can push and pull before you show your hand. If you've ever felt that frustration of, why is she hot and cold with me? It's not because she's unstable. It's because she senses attraction and she's probing your stability. She wants to know, will you panic when I pull away? Will you get needy when I go silent? Will you get arrogant when I show you interest? These are subconscious tests, but they're real. And if you fail them, the attraction fades quickly. Here's what you do instead. When she pulls away, don't chase. That's the moment to let the rope go slack. If she ignores your message for a day, don't send 3 follow-ups. If she cancels a plan, don't beg to reschedule. You hold your ground. Because the man who doesn't scramble when she retreats is the man she can't stop thinking about. He's rare. He's unshakable. And deep down, women are wired to crave that kind of stability. Let me give you a clear story. A friend of mine once went out with a woman who suddenly stopped replying after 2 great dates. He panicked. He called. He texted. He asked if she was upset. He thought he was showing care. But what she saw was desperation. Within days, she disappeared completely. Contrast that with another guy I knew. His date did the exact same thing. Pulled back, went silent. He didn't react. Weeks later, she came back, curious why he hadn't chased. She even admitted, I wanted to see if you'd go crazy when I disappeared. That's the reality the test is built into the silence. This is why indifference is not weakness. It's power. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about genuinely knowing that your worth doesn't depend on her response. You don't measure yourself by her texts, her moods, or her approval. And that is magnetic. That unsettles her in a way no compliment or gift ever she could. Now, here's something you need to catch sometimes. Women will try to draw jealousy out of you just to measure how much they affect you. She'll mention another guy. She'll laugh about someone flirting with her. She's not telling you because she's interested in that man. She's telling you because she wants to see how you react. Do you crumble? Do you get insecure? Or do you stay calm? Smile and move the conversation forward without flinching. That's the moment where she decides if you're in her control or if she's in yours. Here's the practical application the next time a woman withdraws attention. You don't lean forward, you lean back. The next time she tries to stir jealousy, you don't defend, you dismiss. The next time she pushes your buttons, you don't react, you smile. You don't win these battles with effort, you win them with composure. Because here's the secret: women already know you're attractive before you do. The real question is, are you strong enough not to self-destruct under their tests? Most men collapse under the weight of their own insecurity. But when you don't, when you stand calm and grounded, she feels it in her body. She knows she's dealing with a man who's not like the rest. So ask yourself, have you ever chased when you should have pulled back? Have you ever let jealousy pull you into an argument you didn't need to have? Have you ever ruined attraction by proving what didn't need to be proved? You know what most men fail to see. It's not just the obvious signs of attraction that matter: the laugh, the touch, the lingering eye contact. It's the subtle, almost invisible behaviors that tell you more than words ever could. A woman's attraction often shows up in hesitation, in silence, in the way she changes her behavior when you're around. But here's the problem: if you don't recognize these shifts, you either miss the opportunity or you hand over your power. Think about this: you walk into a room and suddenly she adjusts her posture. She was leaning back, relaxed, but now she straightens up. She might even shift her hair over her shoulder, exposing her neck without realizing it. That's not random. That's biology. Attraction makes her unconsciously present herself in a way that feels more feminine. Most men don't notice, or worse, they second guess it. They think, she's probably just fixing her hair. That doubt kills awareness. But if you pay attention quietly, without reacting, you'll start to see how much influence you already carry. Another sign: she asks you questions she doesn't need answers to. What are you doing this weekend? Where'd you get that shirt? Have you ever been to this place? She's not gathering information. She's creating a bridge. She's inviting interaction without risking rejection. And here's where many men destroy the moment they over-explain. They ramble. They treat it like a job interview. What you need to do instead is recognize the opening, answer briefly, and then flip it back on her. Attraction thrives in tension, not in full disclosure. And let's talk about one of the most dangerous traps when a woman gives you attention, then suddenly pulls it away. You were joking, laughing. She was leaning in, and then, out of nowhere, she goes quiet, looks at her phone, turns cold. Most men feel panic here. They think, what did I do wrong? So they start trying harder, more jokes, more questions, more effort. And every ounce of that effort drains their value in her eyes. Because she didn't pull away by accident. She pulled away to test. She wanted to know if your energy collapses the moment hers does. The men who fail this test always chase. The men who pass it don't move an inch. This is the psychology of attraction. Women are not just attracted to your presence. They're attracted to how you handle their absence. When she retreats, can you stay solid? When she goes quiet, can you stay comfortable? When she pushes, can you absorb it without flinching? That's what makes her lean back in. Not your compliments, not your effort, but your refusal to be shaken. Let me tell you a story. A man I coached once was obsessed with keeping women entertained. He thought if the conversation ever went quiet, he was losing her. So he'd fill every gap with nervous chatter. Women would laugh. smile, but after a while, they'd drift away. He couldn't understand why. The truth was simple. His fear of silence revealed insecurity. When we trained him to sit back, to let silence hang, to look at her calmly and wait, everything shifted. Women leaned in to fill the space. They started asking him questions. They wanted his attention more, because he wasn't giving it away for free. Another man I knew experienced the opposite. He was on a date, and the woman mentioned her guy friend who always texts her. Most men would have jumped into proving themselves, asking questions, trying to compete, but he didn't bite. He smiled, changed the subject, and never mentioned it again. Days later, she admitted, "I only said that to see if you'd get jealous. You didn't. That made me want you more." That's the power of detachment. That's the difference between men who chase attraction and men who command it. Here's the tactical takeaway: stop interpreting every withdrawal as rejection. Start seeing it as a test. Stop rushing to fill silence. Start letting it work for you. Stop reacting to her pushes and pulls. Start holding your frame like a man who already knows his worth. The signs you're more attractive than you realize aren't loud. They're subtle. A quick glance, a tease, a retreat, a silence. But they all point to the same truth: you are already being noticed. The only question is whether you'll destroy it with insecurity or amplify it with composure. Now, I want you to reflect. Have you ever filled silence because you were afraid of losing her? Have you ever reacted to a jealousy test and later regretted it? Or have you ever held your ground and watched her attraction grow stronger? Share your story in the comments. There's a moment every man faces in his life, the realization that women have seen something in him long before he ever saw it in himself. You think you're unnoticed, just blending into the background. But then a woman remembers small details about you that you barely recall saying. She knows the way you take your coffee. She remembers that story you told weeks ago. She notices when you change your haircut. Why? Because you've occupied her thoughts without trying. That is attraction in its rawest form, the kind you didn't manufacture, the kind you simply gave off by existing in your own presence. But here's the cruel irony: most men sabotage it. They get a glimpse of interest, and instead of standing firm, they start performing. They overgive, over-explain, overprove, and in doing so, they erode the very mystery that drew her in. Attraction, at its core, is fragile. It thrives in space, in silence, in tension. It dies in overexposure. Think of it this way: when you watch a movie, what keeps you glued to the screen is not what you know, but what you don't. The unanswered questions, the suspense, the uncertainty, that's what pulls you forward. Women experience the same thing with men. When you leave gaps, when you don't reveal everything, when you let silence stretch without panic, you create tension. She leans in because she wants to solve you. The moment you lay it all out, the curiosity dies. That's why some men are called mysterious without even trying. It's not that they're intentionally hiding things. It's that they don't rush to give everything away. They let people wonder. They let women work to earn the pieces. And women value what they earn. They devalue what is dumped on them too quickly. Now, let's bring this down to strategy. Imagine you're texting a woman. She replies fast, sending long messages. The insecure man mirrors her energy, sending paragraphs, answering instantly, pouring himself out. The centered man doesn't. He keeps his replies concise, calm, and never treats his phone like a leash. If he's busy, he doesn't force a reply. If she sends a test, like going silent after showing interest, he doesn't break his routine to chase her. That one difference is the line between a man she controls and a man she respects. Here's another angle most men miss. Attraction often looks like resistance. She might argue with you, challenge your opinions, disagree for the sake of friction. This is not rejection. This is a deeper form of engagement. She's testing if you can hold your ground without needing her approval. If you fold just to keep peace, you fail. If you argue aggressively, you fail. But if you stay calm, stand by your words, and let her feel your certainty without pushing it on her, you win. That calm resistance is intoxicating to a woman because it shows her you can't be bent so easily. I remember a story of a man who went on a date where the woman kept joking. You probably say this to every girl. Many guys would have panicked, defended themselves, or tried to explain, but he just smiled and said, "Maybe, or maybe you're just different enough to make me mean it." He didn't collapse under her test, and he didn't get defensive. He held his frame. She laughed, leaned in closer, and the tension grew. That's the essence of silent strength. It doesn't explain. It doesn't prove. It just is. This is why women are drawn to men who can detach. Detachment doesn't mean coldness. It means you're not emotionally enslaved to her reactions. You can enjoy her presence without needing it. You can walk away without resentment. You can give without expectation. That's rare, and women feel it immediately. It unsettles them because most men are quick to fold. The signs you're more attractive than you realize aren't always warm. Sometimes they look like resistance. Sometimes they look like withdrawal. Sometimes they look like a test meant to break you. But in every case, the truth is the same. She wouldn't bother if she didn't feel something. Indifference is the real enemy. Testing, pulling back, teasing, these are signs you've already struck a chord. So here's the challenge for you. Stop asking, "Does she like me?" Start asking, "How do I carry myself when she tests me?" Stop trying to prove attraction. Start proving stability. Because the men who master that, they don't chase women. Women chase them. Now I want to hear your experience. Have you ever mistaken resistance for rejection? Have you ever revealed too much, too soon, and killed the tension? Or have you ever stood firm and watched her attraction deepen right before your eyes? Tell me your story below. There comes a point where you stop asking, "Am I attractive?" and you start realizing the real question is, how do I protect the attraction I already create without even trying? Because the truth is this, women notice you. They notice the way your silence fills a room, the way you carry yourself when you're not performing, the way you don't flinch under pressure. And the darker truth is, once they notice it, they will test it. Not because they're cruel, not because they hate you, but because their nature demands it. Women don't just want to feel attracted, they want to feel safe, and safety, in their psychology, doesn't come from comfort, it comes from strength. They need to know that if the world pushes you, you don't break. That if they pull away, you don't chase. That if they throw fire, you don't burn. This is why the hottest women test the hardest. Because they're not looking for validation. They're looking for walls that won't collapse when they lean against them. And here's the tragic part. Most men fail not because they lack attractiveness, but because they lack awareness. They don't realize the fight isn't about looks. It's about frame. They get lost in proving, explaining, apologizing, chasing, and every ounce of that weakens them. Women don't fall for the man who bends himself to be liked. They fall for the man who knows he's enough, with or without her approval. Let me tell you about a man I once observed. He was at a party, and every woman in the room noticed him not because he was loud, not because he was flashy, but because he was calm. He didn't chase conversations. He didn't hover. He didn't fight for attention. He stood. He observed. He spoke when he chose. And slowly, women circled closer. They leaned in. They asked him questions. They laughed at his subtle remarks. He didn't move toward them. They moved toward him. That's attraction without effort. That's presence. Contrast that with the man who tries, the one who tells too many stories, laughs too loudly, interrupts too often. He's not unattractive by nature. He's simply destroying his own value by over-proving. Women sense the desperation, and their attraction evaporates. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because he didn't trust that he already was. This is why the strongest strategy you can adopt in modern dating is emotional detachment. Not coldness, not cruelty, but the calm indifference of a man who knows he won't beg for attention he doesn't need. When she withdraws, you stay still. When she tests, you smile. When she tries to provoke, you don't flinch. That's the battlefield of modern attraction. And the man who wins it is the one who doesn't fight for her validation. Because here's the final truth: she didn't notice you by accident. She didn't test you by accident. She didn't pull away by accident. Every move was a probe into your strength. And every time you stayed calm, every time you didn't collapse, her attraction grew. Not in loud declarations, not in obvious signs, but in the subtle ways she circled back, remembered your words, sought your presence again. That's the evidence you're more attractive than you ever realized. So carry this with you. You don't need to chase what you already draw. You don't need to explain what she already feels. You don't need to prove what's already clear. Your only job is to protect it, to guard your frame like it's your life, because it is. The moment you give it away, you lose everything. The moment you keep it, you win without lifting a finger. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.